let me take you back to the year 2005, otherwise known as the peak year of my Star Wars obsession. Yes, this video is about Star Wars. It is the first video I'm making about Star Wars, but I promise you, it will not be the last. It's 2005, the PlayStation 2 is the best video game console ever, and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith is coming out in a few weeks. Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith is the highlight of my year, and probably my childhood life at this time. I was so obsessed with Star Wars that year for Christmas, my parents got me a Jedi Starfighter bed that you could blow up and sleep in. It was yellow, it was Anakin's from the movie, and I slept in that bed every single night for years until it finally popped and it deflated when I was 23. I was Darth Vader every single year
for Halloween
for way too many years. At the absolute peak of my Star Wars Revenge of the Sith hype, there came this little game for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, Game Boy, and Nintendo DS called just simply Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, the video game made by The Collective and Lucasarts.
Your destiny. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the video game.
And although there have been many Star Wars games before and since this game, this one's still my favorite. So much so that when I started to collect older games, this was one of the first games I bought for my reacquired PlayStation 2. So when I decided to do my first not only Star Wars related video, but video game related video, I decided to play through in its entirety Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, the game for PlayStation 2, and I am pleased to report that it holds up insanely well for me. It still has all the charm that it had for me day one when I got it all the way back in 2005. And I thought in this video I'd break down and talk about this game and what makes it special for me, and maybe give you some facts on the development, or maybe get you interested in playing it if you ever have. As I said before, this will not be the last Star Wars video that I make or video game related video that I make, so if you want to see more, please subscribe. Please, sir, please subscribe. Basically, this game was developed to match the overall aesthetic and feel of Revenge of the Sith, the movie. Concept art was used to base a lot of the design of the game off of, including the levels and scenery. John Williams' musical score from Revenge of the Sith was used in the game. The character models were designed to look as close to the actors from the film as possible. And even, the maker! The father of Star Wars, Daddy George Lucas, was brought in to consult on the game.
We would join George at the art department at Skywalker Ranch to view the latest concepts, to see how his vision for the film was progressing or evolving, just to make sure that everything we did was in step with everything that was going on with Episode 3.
From what I can tell, it looks like the developers were given access to an early version of the film, because the game actually includes some segments that were ultimately cut from the film. The opening sequence of both the film and the game takes place on the Invisible Hand above Coruscant, where you have to rescue the Chancellor from Count Dooku. There's actually a sequence in the film that was cut where Anakin and Obi-Wan explore more levels of the Invisible Hand, and these sequences actually made it into the game. One of the most important aspects that the developers really wanted to nail in this game was the very specific style of lightsaber choreography that was created for the prequels. In order to get this just right, they actually brought in Nick Gillard. Nick Gillard is the stunt coordinator and lightsaber fight choreographer from all three prequel films.
Exactly how they move, how their wrists move, when they turn, that they turn the right way, that the blocks and the grapples are correct.
We really learned from that, to the point where some of our animators, they'd instinctively perform a block move that he taught them.
Oh, that's the right move. That's the right move.
He was brought in to basically show the developers how to properly animate and choreograph these lightsaber sequences for the game. And if that wasn't enough inspiration for the developers, they actually got Anakin Skywalker himself, Hayden Christensen, to come in and show off his lightsaber skills to the entire development team. Apparently, Hayden Christensen was an avid gamer himself and was very enthusiastic and helpful in getting this game made.
Stroke, instead of walking up to him at the normal pace that the character would, at this point when it becomes more powerful.
I want this to be my idle stance. And I want my fast opening attack to be this. And what do you say to that besides, Okay. Because he just knows exactly what we're going for and is able to apply his knowledge right to what we're doing.
With all of this assistance from the creator of Star Wars himself, the stunt coordinator, and the lead actor, the game ultimately feels like an extension of the movie. The visuals, the sound design, and the animations all look like they could have fit in the world of Star Wars. And when I was a kid playing this game on the PlayStation 2, it felt like I was playing sequences of the movie. I felt like I was actually getting to experience this story of Revenge of the Sith from the point of view of the characters. That actually perfectly leads into the story itself. The game follows the plot of the film pretty closely. There are 16 main story missions plus one bonus mission that we're going to talk about later. The missions swap back and forth between playing as Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, getting to experience various parts of the story from the point of view of each character. One of the coolest things about this game was that it actually got to use scenes from Revenge of the Sith as part of its cutscenes. Although this was a problem if you didn't actually see the movie first, and you may have gotten it spoiled. Luckily, I beat the game after I saw the movie. The transition between live-action film footage and game cutscene is actually pretty great, and that's greatly helped by the fantastic voice acting talent that doubled the voices of these live-action characters flawlessly.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
Many of these voice actors would go on to be the official voice doubles for these characters to this day. James Arnold Taylor, Corey Burton, Terrence C. Carson, and Tom Kane would all go on to voice Obi-Wan, Count Dooku, Mace Windu, and Yoda in many Star Wars properties from this point on, including the amazing Clone Wars series. The job of voicing Anakin Skywalker went to an actor named Matt Lucas, who almost nearly passes as a perfect Hayden Christensen impression, although there are some questionable decisions that he makes at some points. The live-action cutscenes actually feature different score and sound effects than what would be used in the final film, and especially obvious in the duel with Count Dooku at the beginning of the game, there's actually extended dialogue that we didn't get to hear in the final movie.
You won't get away this time, Dooku.
Just because there are two of you, do not assume you have the advantage.
The main difference between the game and the movie itself is, of course, extending and changing certain scenes to make them playable in a video game, and also make the scenes in the movies go on longer for full levels. Those differences include, as Anakin, you actually fight and kill Mace Windu, unlike in the movie where Palpatine does it. You actually get to play through the entire scene where Anakin storms the Jedi Temple with the 501st Legion, engaging in a boss fight with a new character created for the game named Sarah Keto and Sin Dralig. Sin Dralig actually appears briefly in the prequels and is played by, funny enough, Nick Gillard. Also, as Anakin, you do actually get to play through the scene where you kill all of the Separatist leaders on Mustafar. And finally, the biggest difference between the film is the alternate ending. This is the bonus mission that I mentioned earlier. This alternate ending is crazy, and probably the most famous thing the game is known for. Essentially, you play through the entire final boss fight again, but this time as Anakin fighting Obi-Wan, who survives the fight, jumping over Obi-Wan, killing him, and going to meet up with the Emperor. When he meets up with the Emperor congratulates him on a good job, hands him a new lightsaber, which Anakin then proceeds to kill the Emperor with and proclaim himself as the Emperor of the galaxy.
No, the galaxy belongs to me.
It's wild.
To create images is always a challenge.
The gameplay is focused almost entirely around the use of your lightsaber. As either Anakin or Obi-Wan, you basically mix light and heavy attacks into simple combinations that flow nicely with some pretty cool animations. You also get some force abilities such as mind trick, force push, pull. You can move and carry droids around the battlefield. You can use acrobatic force jumps, then you can actually attack in mid-air with the lightsaber. You can use your lightsaber just like in the movies to deflect and block blaster fire back at your enemies. Another cool force power actually in the game is only as Anakin, you can use Force Lightning, although he never actually did that in the movies. Those super high acrobatic flip jumps that you see in the movie are actually used as transition points throughout the level to get to other areas of the level. For most of the game, the enemies include a large variety of battle droids, some of the standard ones you see in the films, the super battle droids, even some newer designed battle droids that can kind of grab you. These are some of the harder enemies throughout the level, even droids that act as sort of mini bosses throughout the game. Something I noticed is that this game had to have been made before they officially changed the voices of the droids. If you remember, in The Phantom Menace, they actually sound completely differently than they're known to sound now, not as high-pitched and silly sounding.
Drop your weapon. Drop your weapon. I said drop them.
More unique enemies in the game include the Magna Guards that are known for guarding General Grievous. When you play as Anakin after he turns to the dark side, you actually fight off against Jedi in the Jedi Temple. And when you play as Obi-Wan, once Order 66 is issued, you actually fight against clones. There's also some parts in some levels where you actually play on a sort of turret or railgun. Overall, the gameplay is fun. It still holds up to me to this day. I think a lot of that comes from the satisfaction of getting to slice up droids into tons of pieces and getting to do those cool acrobatic flips and sort of Jedi lightsaber spins that you saw in the prequels. It's fun to get to use Jedi Force abilities and lightsaber attacks and combos that you figure out throughout the game. There's also an upgrade screen at the end of each level where you can make your character essentially a little more powerful the longer you play. Of course, that leads into the difficulty of the game, which, as a kid, I remember this game being really hard at points, specifically 2 boss fights. You play as Obi-Wan fighting General Grievous, and General Grievous sucked when I was a kid. Pissed me off like you wouldn't believe. And then immediately after defeating General Grievous, who was ridiculously hard, you get to fight Mace Windu, who's even harder. I went into this game years later as an adult, fully expecting to get my ass handed to me by these 2 bosses. I beat them first try. It wasn't even hard. My entire childhood was a lie. I guess I've grown into a much better gamer now that I'm an adult. Of course, it felt amazing to get to go back and do that on the first try years later, and that's how the whole game feels. To get to go back and play it again after all these years, there's something nostalgic about the way that it controls and feels. The gameplay is great. I really enjoy it. My favorite thing about the gameplay is the dueling in the boss fights against other characters with lightsabers. And I think the developers knew how fun the dueling system was because they made it into the local multiplayer. When you beat a boss in the story mode, they become an unlockable duelist in the dueling local multiplayer mode. Basically, you pick a stage and a fighter, and essentially it becomes a fighting game for a little bit. Each player has special abilities you can use and all that good stuff. Basically, you go up to your younger brother, say, hey, you want to play Star Wars Revenge of the Sith dueling? They say, hell yeah, sure. And then the both of you proceed to fight over the good controller for 20 minutes, ultimately one of you getting stuck with the bad one, and then you get into a fight over who wins and loses over the game. One of you gets salty, and you yank the PlayStation 2 as hard as you can off the counter where it hits the floor until a few years later you have to buy a GameCube because you broke your PlayStation 2. At least that was my experience with it. I don't know about you guys. The roster of fighters you can select for this dueling mode include Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, General Grievous, Count Dooku, Sindralic, Sarah Kato, and 2 other characters. This perfectly transitions me into the bonus content, which for me as a kid was the most surprising thing about the game.
The pyro processing, but it's a molten salt process. They're dissolving this thing in a molten salt, and they're doing electrochemistry on it.
There are unlockable bonus levels in this game, and they are fantastic. These bonus missions are basically one-man army type levels where you play as a specific character and fight against a wave of oncoming enemies. 2 of them involve holding your ground as either General Grievous or Anakin Skywalker. The other 2 involve you actually getting to play as the Magna Guard, fighting off a bunch of clones for General Grievous, or, really cool, getting to play as Yoda fighting off a bunch of Order 66 clone troopers. But those 2 mystery characters in the dueling section that I mentioned earlier actually come into play in my favorite bonus level in the game. You can unlock a level where you get to play the very first lightsaber fight in the entire Star Wars series with footage from the very first Star Wars movie, playing as Darth Vader versus Ben Kenobi. Let me just praise this for a second. Not only did I get to play through what at the time for me was the most epically built up lightsaber fight of the entire series, Anakin versus Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Not only did I get to do that, not only did I get to play as Count Dooku, General Grievous, Obi-Wan, Anakin in a dueling mode with my brothers. Not only did I get to play as Yoda fighting off waves of clone troopers, but they let me play as Darth Vader fighting Ben Kenobi in the first ever lightsaber fight in the whole series as a bonus level. Thank you. Thank you. To those of you who made this personally, thank you so much for blowing my mind as a young boy. My young boy mind exploded. Thank you, Collective. Thank you so much. So why did I make this video? Why did I finally decide to do a Star Wars video based on a Star Wars video game? Why do I collect tons of old video games and VHS tapes? Same reason, nostalgia. It's amazing how certain sights and sounds can take you back years and years to where things were simpler, when I was a kid, didn't have bills and responsibilities that were so great, and I didn't feel all this pressure. Booting up this game after all these years and watching that amazing opening intro sequence before you press start, it's cool how games used to do that. They were an experience. Going to GameStop was an experience. Bringing the game home and putting it in the console for the first time, sitting down, waiting for the intro of the PlayStation to play all the way through, and sitting at that black screen, clenching your asshole, hoping that the PlayStation 2 logo would appear, meaning your game was working. And then getting to that opening attract animation, that intro before you press start that would hype you up for the game you were about to play.
Fulfill your destiny.
Hell, the menu music in the game. Sitting on that main menu where clips of the movie would play and that mysterious sort of melancholy music would play on my CRT TV. It was 2005 again when I played this. It's 2005 every time I play this game. Isn't that the whole point of playing old games anyway? Feeling the current year just slip away and going back to a time when things were easier? That's my first Star Wars video. That's my first video game video. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching the whole thing like you've done the other two. I really appreciate those of you who have. Please consider subscribing, turn on notifications when the next one comes out. Please, someone send me the Star Wars inflatable bed that I can sleep in again. I have not had a good night's sleep since I lost that bed. Please, please, someone